What if the most sacred structure in ancient Israel wasn't built by human hands alone? What if behind the glory of King Solomon's temple, there was something far more unsettling? Not just wisdom, not just divine blessing, but something darker, something hidden. Because according to an ancient text almost no one talks about, Solomon didn't just rule with wisdom. He commanded demons, and not metaphorically, literally. So here's the question no one ever encouraged you to ask. If Solomon's wisdom came from God, why do some texts claim his power came from controlling the infernal? And if those texts were known, why were they never included in the Bible? If you want content that challenges what you thought you knew and pushes you to think deeper, subscribe now. Because what we're about to explore sits right on the edge between theology and the occult. Now, let's begin with what you already know. King Solomon, the son of David, the man the Bible describes as the wisest king who ever lived, a ruler who asked God not for wealth or power, but for understanding, and according to the biblical account, he received it. But wisdom alone doesn't explain everything, because Solomon didn't just rule a kingdom. He built something extraordinary, the first temple in Jerusalem, a structure described with such precision, such grandeur, that it still fascinates historians, architects, and theologians today. Massive stones, perfect alignment, a construction so advanced that even now, people ask how it was achieved with the tools available at the time. So here's a simple question. How did Solomon build it? The Bible says it was constructed using skilled laborers and craftsmen. But there's something interesting. It also emphasizes that the stones were prepared off-site, so that no sound of tools was heard at the temple itself. Silence, precision, control, almost unnatural efficiency. Now imagine you're an ancient observer. You see a structure rising unlike anything before it. Perfect, silent, almost otherworldly. Would you believe it was built by ordinary means? Or would you start asking different questions? Because outside the Bible, another text exists. One that tells a very different story. It's called the Testament of Solomon. And according to this text, Solomon's power didn't come from wisdom alone. It came from a ring. Not just any ring. A ring given to him by a divine messenger. A signet ring, engraved with a seal. A symbol that granted him authority over something most people fear even to name. Demons. Now stop and think about that. If such a ring existed, what would it mean? Would it be a tool of divine authority? Or something far more dangerous? According to the Testament of Solomon, this ring allowed him to summon, command, and control demonic entities. Not one, not two, but many, including powerful demonic princes, beings described with distinct personalities, abilities, and roles. And what did Solomon do with them? He didn't just interrogate them. He put them to work, cutting stone, shaping materials, building the temple. So ask yourself this. If a sacred temple was built using unclean spirits, what does that say about its foundation? Is it still holy? Or does it become something else entirely? Because this is where the tension begins. On one side, you have the biblical narrative. Solomon, chosen by God, building a house for divine presence. On the other side, you have an alternative tradition. Solomon, wielding supernatural control, forcing demonic beings into labor. And the two don't sit comfortably together. So which one is closer to the truth? Or are both telling different parts of the same story? The Testament of Solomon goes even further. It describes specific demons, names, functions, weaknesses, almost like a catalog. Each one summoned, each one questioned, each one bound by the authority of the ring. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Solomon doesn't just command them, he learns from them. They reveal knowledge, hidden things, secrets of the world. Now think carefully. If wisdom is supposed to come from God, what happens when knowledge comes from something else? Is it still wisdom? Or does it become something closer to forbidden understanding? Because that line is where things begin to blur. And maybe that's exactly why this text was never included in the Bible, because it raises a dangerous idea. That divine authority and occult power might overlap, that the same king praised for his wisdom could also be associated with control over dark forces. And that idea complicates everything. Now, let's step back for a moment, because even within the Bible, there are hints. Solomon's story doesn't end cleanly. Despite his wisdom, he eventually falls. He turns to foreign gods, builds altars, allows influence that leads Israel into spiritual decline. So here's a question worth asking. If Solomon had access to power beyond human understanding, did that power change him? Or was it always there beneath the surface? Because power, especially hidden power, rarely stays contained. And the Testament of Solomon paints a picture of a man walking a very thin line, a king chosen by God, but interacting with forces that stand in opposition. So now the bigger question emerges. Why remove this text? Was it because it was false? Or because it introduced ideas that were too complex, too dangerous, too difficult to reconcile with a structured belief system? Because imagine teaching a religion built on clear boundaries between good and evil, and then introducing a story where those boundaries blur, where a king uses demons to build a temple for God, where control over darkness becomes part of divine purpose. Would that strengthen faith or destabilize it? And if it destabilizes it, what do you do with that text? You exclude it. You set it aside. You label it as non-canonical. Not necessarily because it has no value, but because it raises questions that don't have easy answers. And that brings us back to you. Because once you know this text exists, you can't unknow it. You're left with a choice. Do you ignore it? Or do you ask what it reveals about the larger picture? Because the story of Solomon isn't just about wisdom. It's about power. And power always comes with question. Where does it come from? And what does it cost? So now I'll leave you with this. Do you think Solomon's temple was built purely through divine wisdom? Or was there something more hidden beneath the surface? Something ancient, something controlled, something not entirely holy? Let me know what you think in the comments. If this made you question something you've never questioned before, leave a like. If you want more content that explores the hidden layers of ancient texts, subscribe. And if there's someone who believes every biblical story is as simple as it seems, send this to them. Because sometimes the deeper truth isn't what's written, it's what was left out.